how do you bring your peak performance day after day, especially when you're going through change or turmoil and uncertainty? How do you make sure that you're able to bring your A game, your peak performance every single day at work?
Yeah, I love that question, Jeff. Always good to spend some time with you and talk about these hot topics. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this lately, mostly just really over the last couple of years. It's been so challenging with the ambiguity of our working environment. We're in the office, we're not, we're traveling, we're not. Some of these different levers, there's so much uncertainty. Even just meeting our customers where they are. And it's tricky because, some of the things that even I relied on before, like a commute and time to, listen to an audiobook or some music on the drive home, doesn't exist. I walk out that door and I'm immediately immersed right back into family who I love, but there's no breaks. And, I think that's the key element is every day, how do we conjure up the old magic? I've also done a lot of reading lately, and I've been diving into Phil Jackson. Love Phil Jackson. I finished 11 Rings. I read Sacred Hoops this past week, and right now I'm reading the last season. Very compare and contrast, stark contrast of some of these experiences and seasons that he went through, which is indicative of our lives, right? We have great wins, we have crushing losses, but yet nevertheless, we can't let the pendulum swing too far one way or the other. We've got to keep equilibrium. We've got to keep balance. One of the things that I really took away from it resonated with me a great deal, and it's kind of the approach that I try to take. I've talked before with you about the trip I took a few years back in the mountains. I'd look up and I'm like, my goodness, I got to go up there. But if you land the step and you take one step at a time, it's a lot more digestible. Phil Jackson's approach, very similar. It's all about mindfulness and being present and being in the moment, not bringing with you the baggage of the wins and losses. Now, don't get me wrong. You bring with you the lessons. I can see better around corners and anticipate and make proactive moves based on the knowledge that I bring with me. But being present and being in the moment and focusing just on that moment as opposed to anything else, that helps me bring my best self to each moment or to each day. The other key element, the mistakes or the losses or even just the great wins, let go of them, but keep forward the learnings. You'll keep parlaying those learnings into your future activities. Let them inform the strategy that you put in place because it's going to make your process better. It's going to make how you focus and you show up with people better. So be present in each situation, apply your best. And lastly, do it for the love of the game. You and I had talked about this recently about the elements that we've loved about jobs that we're in or past jobs. I had a job a decade ago that, I thought I had peaked in my career. I was, getting up every day in front of hundreds of sellers and giving speeches and getting standing ovations and, controlling markets that we were calling into and writing these synopses of these markets. And I loved just about every facet of that. And I thought I would never eclipse it. I don't even give it a second thought anymore because in my current role, I feel like the planets have just aligned. Always hold with you the thought that nothing good or bad lasts. There is the key element of knowing that sometimes you've got to push through situations, sometimes you've got to persevere, but the payoff is getting back to some semblance of your passions. And you can't always do exactly on paper what you think you would want to do or what you in your mind think you want to do, but you can parlay the things that you love into your role, infuse your passions into what you do. And if you do that, you'll find those things that you can gravitate toward, and that will make it a better day. And you keep putting together those pieces and those better days, and before you know it, you'll be in a really good spot. And I think if you focus on those things, focus on mindfulness, focus on being your best self and just landing the step in every moment, you're going to crush it. What are your thoughts on this topic?
No, I love what you had to say. In fact, there are really two things I wanted to say. One of which I think is overlap with your feedback in terms of like mindfulness and being present. I think it's a related idea. Actually, it's about detachment. And I know this will sound counterintuitive to people, but to some degree, we need to recognize, not to sound super existential here, but it's a big universe. We don't really know what our purpose is here. We're like specks of dust in the grand scheme of things. And we're very narcissistic creatures. We have a tendency to really place disproportionate emphasis and value on the things that are right in front of us. But as the old saying goes, there was life before whatever X event happened, and there will be life after it as well. And to your point about letting things go and being at peace with the good or the bad or the ugly, I think that that's particularly true. Like you need to have a level of detachment towards things so that you're not bent out of shape depending on the outcome. You need to not be as stressed about outcomes and more focused on the inputs, right? If you're doing the right inputs, you're going to get the right outcomes. It's just a fact, right? We know that that's true. So people that are solely focused on outcomes and live and die by outcomes and cannot detach themselves from outcomes will suffer in that regard. The other thing, Carson, that I would say too is, I'll tell like a really quick story. Last year, I posted something on LinkedIn about a flight I had on JetBlue. It went like really, it's like the most viral post I've ever had. God knows why, but the former chairman of JetBlue saw this post, reached out to me and asked me to help him write his next book about intentionality. And I got to interview all these CEOs about intentionality, which was really cool. And I learned a lot about the idea of having an intention in everything that you do. And so, when I think about day to day, at the end of every day at work, I'm usually looking at my schedule for the next day to start thinking about like, what are the things that I want to accomplish tomorrow? And again, like, you wake up that morning and you think about like, what are the small things that would be a win for me today? I think the mistake people make is that if they have a big call, they like, that call doesn't go well, then the day was a failure. And, I'd look at it a little bit differently and say, what do I want to accomplish in that call? Like what things have I been working on that I want to practice, and can I execute those? And again, looking at the inputs, intentionality around like the little things that you do every single day, making a list of those little goals and saying like, did I accomplish these things? If you do it that way, you will tend to succeed, right? Because if you break it down into little things that are very achievable, you should achieve those things, right? And so, and then this compounds, and over the course of time should lead to greater and greater success. So I usually have like in my mind a few things that like little things that I want to do well that day, knowing like based on what I know the day has in store for me. And then try to just like think about like, did I do those things? And if not, why not? Right? Like try to diagnose it. So those are a couple of things. I think we see eye to eye on this, and it's a great topic.
I absolutely love that, Jeff. I mean, what I'm hearing, be purpose driven, execute those non-negotiables every day. Getting those wins is fulfilling, and it's challenging, but don't get distracted by things out of your control. Those
Yep.
are the things that I think cause the worry, the anxiety, the fear, and those things will happen. And when they happen, you acknowledge them. But nevertheless, if you focus more on the things that you can control, you can create your own luck.
Yep. Love it. Agree 100%.
Good stuff. As always, Jeff, thanks so much. Always good to see you, and see you next time.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.